What happens when the world's most powerful nation negotiates peace, deals with zero credibility? Stay with us, because what Ottawa understands about Trump's Ukraine strategy reveals exactly why Canadian sovereignty just became non-negotiable. Breaking tonight, American foreign policy just exposed its fundamental weakness. Trump didn't negotiate, he improvised. Tensions are exploding in Eastern Europe tonight. Washington promised Ukraine a peace deal within days, but instead of diplomatic clarity, Mar-a-Lago delivered strategic chaos. Everyone believed American leadership would stabilize the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Markets expected Trump's deal-making skills to force compromise. Analysts assumed Washington still controlled global security architecture. They were all utterly incorrect. Mar-a-Lago, December 28th, 2025. Standing beside Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Donald Trump made a statement that stunned diplomatic circles. Russia and Ukraine are closer than ever before to peace, but negotiations could still go poorly and leave the war dragging on for years. Translation: the United States just admitted it has no idea what happens next. And what happened while Trump spoke? Russian guided bombs struck Sloviansk. 4 injuries, 1 death. Moscow launching attacks even as Washington claimed breakthrough progress. Dear viewers, between Trump's call with Putin and his press conference with Zelensky, something extraordinary happened in global power dynamics. Washington pushed for quick results. Reality said no. And Canada, strategic and patient, became the model every middle power started studying. This isn't just about one chaotic negotiation. This is about the fundamental collapse of American diplomatic credibility and the rise of sovereign independence as the new currency of international influence. December the 28th, 2025. Trump describes his call with Putin as excellent and lasting 2.5 hours. He insists Putin still wants peace and claims Russia wants to see Ukraine succeed. December 28th, 2025. While Trump speaks, Russian missiles strike Kyiv. 27 wounded, 1 dead, explosions booming across the capital as Zelensky flies to Florida for negotiations. The contradiction isn't subtle, it's definitional. Trump tells reporters he believes Putin is very serious about ending the war, then acknowledges Ukraine has launched strong attacks into Russia, then admits he doesn't know where explosions inside Russian territory came from, joking, "I don't think it came from the Congo." This is American diplomacy in 2025. Contradictory statements, casual acknowledgement of ongoing violence, zero accountability for claims that shift hourly. Putin's foreign affairs advisor, Yuri Ushakov, called the Trump-Putin conversation friendly, benevolent, and businesslike. He also insisted a bold, responsible political decision is needed from Kyiv before any complete cessation of hostilities. Translation: Moscow sees American eagerness for a deal and is raising demands. The Kremlin wants all seized territories recognized as Russian, wants Ukraine to abandon NATO membership, wants international troops banned from any peacekeeping force, wants Ukraine to limit army size and give official status to Russian language. And Trump? He's somewhat receptive to these demands, according to reporting, making the case that Putin can be persuaded if Kyiv cedes land and Western powers offer economic incentives to bring Russia back into the global economy. While Washington improvises, Ottawa is watching closely. Mark Carney didn't issue statements about Trump's Ukraine negotiations. He didn't need to, because Canada's strategic position has never been clearer. When your largest neighbor demonstrates diplomatic unreliability on the world stage, you don't criticize. You prepare. Canada learned this lesson watching Trump pressure NATO allies, threaten trade partners, and abandon international agreements. The pattern is consistent. American commitments last exactly as long as American attention spans. Trump promised to end the Ukraine war in 24 hours as a candidate. Now he's in year 1 of his second term, acknowledging peace talks could take weeks or collapse entirely, leaving conflict dragging on for years. The shift from 24 hours to "we'll know in a few weeks" to "it could also go poorly" isn't just missed deadlines. It's proof that American foreign policy operates without strategic foundation. And that reality changes everything for Canada. Because if Washington can't guarantee security commitments to Ukraine after 4 years of war and massive weapons transfers, what value do American security guarantees hold for anyone? The draft peace proposal Zelensky described as 90% ready includes U.S. security guarantees similar to those offered to NATO members. Zelensky said he'd drop Ukraine's NATO bid if these guarantees materialized. But here's what Ottawa knows that Kyiv is learning. American guarantees evaporate when American leadership changes. Trump himself demonstrated this. He demanded both sides halt fighting and stop at the battle line after hosting Zelensky in October, effectively endorsing Russia keeping seized Ukrainian territory. Then negotiations continued. Then draft proposals emerged. Then Trump called Putin very serious about peace, while Russian bombs fell on Ukrainian cities. The incoherence isn't incidental. It's structural. You won't see headlines about Canada's reaction to Trump's Ukraine negotiations. That's intentional, because Canada's response isn't reactive statement-making. It's strategic repositioning. Every time Washington demonstrates unreliability on international commitments, Ottawa strengthens relationships with partners who value consistency. Every time Trump contradicts American policy within single press conferences, Canada becomes more attractive to nations seeking stable partnerships. The pattern repeats across every sector. Defense procurement moves toward domestic manufacturing and non-American suppliers. Trade agreements diversify beyond North American dependence. Technology partnerships expand with European and Asian allies. This isn't anti-American positioning. It's post-American preparation. Canada is building the infrastructure of sovereignty, while America is busy proving why sovereignty matters. And the evidence is everywhere once you know where to look. March 2025, Carney's government announced accelerated defense spending focused on domestic production capacity. Translation: Canada will not depend on American security guarantees that change with election cycles. June 2025, Ottawa finalized comprehensive technology partnerships with Germany and Japan. Translation: Canada's digital infrastructure will not rely on American companies that face political pressure. September 2025, Canada's trade diversification strategy showed results, with non-American export growth outpacing U.S.-bound shipments for the first time in decades. Translation: Canadian economic resilience no longer requires American market access. December 28, 2025, while Trump improvises Ukraine peace terms at Mar-a-Lago, Canada's sovereignty infrastructure operates exactly as designed. Independent, resilient, strategic. Trump told reporters the Ukraine negotiations could succeed in weeks or fail completely. In a few weeks, we will know one way or the other, I think, but it could also go poorly. That uncertainty is America's liability. It's Canada's opportunity, because nations watching Trump's Ukraine diplomacy aren't just observing negotiation tactics, they're evaluating American reliability as a security partner. And they're reaching conclusions that strengthen Canada's position. When Germany's chancellor discusses energy security, Canadian LNG infrastructure looks increasingly attractive compared to dependence on American political whims. When Japan considers technology partnerships, Ottawa's consistency outweighs Washington's unpredictability. When European allies assess Arctic security, Canadian sovereignty claims carry more weight than American assurances. The shift isn't dramatic, it's cumulative. Each contradiction in American foreign policy adds credibility to Canadian alternatives. Each broken American promise makes Canadian reliability more valuable. Each chaotic American negotiation makes Canadian strategic patience more attractive. Trump's Ukraine diplomacy isn't just failing to end a European war. It's accelerating the transition from American-dominated security architecture to multipolar cooperation among sovereign nations. And Canada positioned itself for exactly this moment. Zelensky said the weeks ahead may be intensive as negotiations continue. Trump's team described the draft proposal as substantive progress. Putin's advisors insisted Russian demands remain non-negotiable. The outcome is genuinely uncertain. But here's what isn't uncertain. The pattern of American diplomatic chaos is permanent, as long as American leadership changes every 4 to 8 years, with zero continuity in international commitments. Trump can promise Ukraine NATO-like security guarantees today. His successor can abandon those guarantees tomorrow. Putin knows this. Zelensky is learning this. And every nation watching is understanding this. Canada understood this years ago. That's why Ottawa didn't wait for American chaos to prove inevitable. That's why Carney's government built sovereignty infrastructure before dependence became crisis. That's why Canadian partnerships with Europe, Asia, and non-American allies now provide options instead of emergency responses. While Trump negotiates peace deals that might succeed or go poorly, Canada operates with clarity, Sovereignty isn't negotiable. Independence isn't optional. Strategic autonomy isn't subject to American approval. The world is watching Mar-a-Lago and seeing diplomatic improvisation, but the world is also watching Ottawa and seeing what happens when a nation decides dependence is more dangerous than self-reliance. Trump's Ukraine diplomacy will either produce a peace deal or collapse into continued conflict. Either way, the lesson remains identical. American commitments last exactly as long as American attention spans. Canada learned that lesson, built infrastructure based on that lesson, and positioned itself to thrive regardless of what happens in Washington's next chaotic negotiation. Between Trump's contradictory press conferences and Putin's escalating demands, something extraordinary is happening in global power dynamics. Washington is proving why sovereignty matters, and Canada, strategic and patient, is showing every middle power exactly how sovereignty works. This isn't just about Ukraine's future. This is about the fundamental restructuring of international relationships and the rise of sovereign independence as the only reliable foundation for national security. Dear viewers, the weeks ahead will be intensive. Trump was right about that, but not in the way he meant. Because what's intensifying isn't just Ukraine negotiations, it's the realization, spreading across capitals worldwide, that American reliability is a contradiction in terms. And that realization changes everything for nations ready to embrace sovereignty. Canada was ready, Canada is ready, and what happens next proves exactly why independence isn't isolation. It's insurance against the chaos that dependence guarantees. Watch our next analysis on how Canada's defense procurement strategy is reshaping North American security architecture, while Washington focuses on foreign conflicts. Subscribe to Canada Next for analysis that connects dots others don't even see.